So, that clip by African Uncensored drumming home the grim reality in Kenya. The statistics are damning. 37,000 Kenyans die from cancer annually. And today, Bomet Governor Joyce Laboso becomes one of the latest victims of this scourge. She is one of the 3 prominent Kenyans who have succumbed to cancer in the month of July after Safaricom CEO Bob Collymore and Kibra Member of Parliament Ken Okoth's demise. In the US and in the UK, which have some of the world's best health policies, technology and healthcare, cancer is second to heart diseases as the main cause of death. Yes, cancer is a global crisis as of now. Here at home, Kenyans grapple with the high cost of cancer treatment or even management, misdiagnosis, and many wallow in helplessness. This includes those who are directly and even indirectly affected by cancer. So tonight on The Big Story, we delve into what is arguably Kenya's biggest nightmare, cancer. Joining me for this discussion is Anne Korir, head of the National Cancer Registry, and Dr. Jacqueline Kitulu, the president of Kenya Medical Association. Both are right here in our Mombasa Road studio. We also have Dr. Andrew Odhiambo, who is joining us from our city center studio. He is an oncologist. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us on The Big Story. But stay with me for a couple of minutes. I want to bring in our lead reporter, Sophia Wanuna, who's speaking to us from Upper Hill. Sophia, this is a dark evening for the Republic of Kenya. The demise of Dr. Laboso is just one of the many. And the reason why we're even having this conversation is because she's a prominent person who was known, but there are thousands out there who have lost their life. Their families out there who are dealing with this. Their families out there who are struggling with this as well. And you were at the Lee Funeral Home just moments after that announcement was made that Dr. Laboso had indeed passed on. And there were several leaders that came in. What was the one message that came out from the different speeches that they gave?
Good evening, Linda. Indeed, the country is in mourning. The family, friends, the entire country, of course, the residents of Bomet as well tonight following the report of the death of Dr. Joyce Cherono Laboso. She died at around 3 p.m. according to her husband. We arrived there a few minutes later, and as you indicated, several leaders came to the Lee Funeral Home in their numbers, led by the Deputy President William Ruto, and he indicated he was speaking for the family, talked about the last moments he had spent with the late governor, saying that 2 months ago when they had a conversation, and despite the challenge in terms of her health and dealing with cancer she was grappling with, she appeared optimistic. He as well was hopeful that things would turn around and would be well, but that was not to be the case. And at some point also touching on the fact that she was in a lot of pain. That is the message we had from all the leaders, just talking about her last days, a lot of pain, a lot of medication, but to the person that she was, because we also had that from the leaders, a courageous woman, a hard-working woman, one that set the pace for others. Remember, on 2 accounts, Governor, the late Laboso, set a fast. She was the first deputy speaker in the National Assembly, serving in the last parliament, and she's among the 3 first governors, female governors in the country, the first female governor for Bomet County. So in that respect, her fast. And so to the character of the kind of a person she was, definitely spoken about today. And also the husband, now widower, just talking about a woman who had suffered for a long time, but that did not talk about it. She did not want the disease and the challenges she was facing in her health to be used as an excuse, is what he said a little bit earlier today, that whilst they've known and dealt with the cancer for some time as a family internally, she'd wanted to continue working and not to be looked at through that prism of a person struggling to deliver in whatever way. So let's begin by listening to some of what the Deputy President said when he was at the Lee Funeral Home, flanked by the husband and other family members as well as political leaders of the person of the late Laboso.
Joyce has left us a very devastated nation county and family. 2 months ago, I had a long chat with Joyce, and she didn't show any signs that it was going to come to this in 2 very short months before she left for London and finally for India, and before she was brought back home. It is a situation that confounds all of us, that yet again we have lost one of us, a courageous, hardworking, very progressive woman leader in Kenya. As we all know, Joyce was among the pioneer elected governors in the Republic of Kenya. And she won against many odds. She demonstrated beyond doubt that she was made of very good metal. The husband, Edwin here, has been very special because Edwin and the rest of the family have been by Joyce's side all the while. And I'm sure that when finally Edwin speaks, the country will know what Edwin has been to Joyce Laboso over the so many years that they have been married and they brought up this family. So from all of us, because of the pain, when I came here on Sunday to see Joyce, we had a chat, and she was conscious. She asked me about what was going on in Bomet. She asked me about whether she could go home. And with Edwin here, we told her everything was under control and all she needed to do was to look after herself and give opportunity to doctors to look after her. Unfortunately, today, Joyce has left. With the amount of pain that she was going through, with the level of medicine that she had to be given so that she can overcome the pain, I think God has finally rested Joyce.
And the late Governor Dr. Joyce Laboso's condition, Linda, degenerated, it appears, over the last 2 months. It began with a visit then to seek further treatment in the UK. It's also at the time that the former Prime Minister, accompanied by the High Commissioner to the UK from Kenya, Manoa Sipisu, visited her there. She then later left for India, coming back just 2 weeks ago on the 14th of July. So the last 2 months have been rigorous. And the former Prime Minister, who was also at the Lee Funeral Home, in talking about when he last saw her at in London, in the UK, when she was receiving treatment there, and 10 days ago when he visited her, a lot had significantly changed. In fact, she could not recognize him. Here's some of what he had to say.
Ever since she joined the world of politics, following the tragic death of our sister Lorna, and she has all the time stood on the side of the right. She has again fallen victim of cancer. Just this week alone, we have buried about 5 people who have died of cancer. I visited Joyce in a hospital in London. It's about 6 weeks ago. Then she was strong, She was in pain, but we could have a very good conversation. But 10 days ago, when I went to see her at the ICU at Nairobi Hospital, she had completely changed. And you could see she was in pain, terrible pain. So I think that this has released her from pain. It is a big blow to the people of Bomet and the nation at large that we have lost at this critical time. At this moment, we all stand in solidarity with our family of Dr. Bonyo, who have had to endure this for this long period of time when she was suffering. We will stand with them, and more will be said in the future. But the entire nation of Kenya is in mourning. It is very sad indeed.
Former Prime Minister Raila Odinga there earlier as well, condoling with the family and speaking of those moments, the last moments he got to share with the late Laboso. And you've heard there just 5 people in 1 week and many more, Linda, that yes, this topic may appear to hit the headlines when it's the prominent people who pass on, who die, but yet thousands of other Kenyans continue to be ravaged by this disease. And you'll be talking more with the guests in studio. But I want us now to listen to the husband of the late governor, who said at this particular point, strength is what he appeals for everybody. Of course, also requesting and asking that the family be given that privacy to mourn, but saying it would be the greatest gift for the people of Bomet, for the family and friends to be strong even at this very difficult time.
To my family members, I want us to be strong. We have to be strong for her. As it has been mentioned, she's actually suffered for a long time, but we've kept it under wraps. She did not want it to deter her duty and all the things that she was doing. So she was very strong, and we can only reciprocate that by also being stronger for her.
So the widow there, the late Governor Laboso's husband, talking about strength. He also did mention how long the governor had suffered. So many leaders condoling the nation at large. But critical, Linda, is that this conversation goes beyond the shock element of when a prominent individual dies, that it goes beyond to the understanding and the struggles of everyday Kenyans, the ordinary Kenyans, where the cost of treatment, drugs, all of that very expensive. And so that when the president and his administration talks about healthcare being a big 4 agenda, seeking to achieve universal healthcare, the devolution of healthcare. Remember, I spoke to the Senate Speaker Lusaka and talking about what more must be done. Even to Raila Odinga, the question was posed as to shouldn't now this conversation, as far as leadership is concerned, whether it's legislation or pushing for mechanisms that allow for this to be tackled, all hands on deck, so that it's not just about everybody coming and talking about it in one-off instances and then we quietly forget. But this is ravaging the country. It's no respecter of persons. It's a serious problem. Arguably, as you mentioned, one of the biggest nightmares the country faces. And right now is the time to make sure this conversation does not lose that momentum, especially for many more Kenyans, even tonight in this moment, that continue to suffer from this disease. Linda.
It's a big deal, Sophia. For some of us who've lost very close family members to cancer, we understand the implications. We understand that pain. We understand what it can do to a family, and it's not easy for thousands of families out there. Sophia Wanuna, thank you. So Dr. Githinji Gitai tweeted something just after the news of the demise of Dr. Laboso, and he said, "Cancer is like terrorism. It is noisy, emotive, and steals headlines. As we mourn Okoth, Laboso, and Bob, let's also mourn the thousands that die every day from preventable causes and build a primary healthcare system that prevents cancer and other deaths, not knee-jerk to cancer centers." And that is the conversation that lots of leaders have been having since this cancer became a nightmare in the Republic of Kenya. We did mention at the beginning of this show We have about 37,000 deaths every year from cancer in the Republic of Kenya. That is not good at all. So let's have this conversation with Ms. Anne Korir, Head of Cancer Registry at Cambridge National Registry. Ma'am, thank you for joining us on The Big Story this evening. We're also speaking to Dr. Andrew Odhiambo, who's an oncologist, who's joining us from our City Center studio. And we're speaking to Dr. Jacqueline Kitulu, who's the President, Kenya Medical Association. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us on The Big Story. I'll segment this conversation because each and every one of you has a role to play in this conversation that we're having this evening. And I'll begin with Ms. Anne Kihoro, so I can get the statistics. Where are we as a country? Ms. Anne Korir, so let's look at the data that we currently have in the Republic of Kenya with respect to cancer. We've mentioned we lose about 37,000. How many people from the data that you have are fighting cancer right now in the Republic of Kenya?
Thank you, Linda. First of all, I'd like to convey my sincere condolences to the family and the residents of Bomet County, the family of Dr. Joyce Laboso. On my behalf and on behalf of the Director Kemri, Dr. Yeri Kombe, we want to convey our condolences. So speaking about the statistics, so Kemri works closely with several partners, WHO being one of them. And over the years, we have been able to generate statistics to be able to understand the burden of cancer in the country.
Yeah.
Because it's only when you know where the burden is that you can be able to come up with control measures. So over the years, we release data that we do in conjunction with the WHO. And the recent statistics were released last year, 2018. And this data is worrying because 5 years ago, in 2012, we released statistics as well. But over the years, we've seen that cancer is increasing. So we have not seen a decrease. Most of the cancers are going up. So the latest statistics is actually 47,000 new cases, 47,000 new cases being diagnosed every year. And we lose 32,000 people to cancer every year. So these are really worrying because as we look at it 5 years ago, these numbers were much less. But over the years, we can see that these numbers are going up. So it is worrying to lose 32,000 people in a year. That translates, Linda, to about 80 people per day. So each day, we are losing about 80 people to cancer. So this is really worrying because we know that, again, from the statistics, we see that majority of these people are still young. They are in the ages that are highly productive. Most of these cancers are occurring in the ages of 40 to 55, especially for the ladies, and then for the men, from the ages of about 55 to 65. So as you can see, these are still very young ages in society, very productive in the society, and we are losing these people to cancer. So it is indeed worrying for us as a country, as a nation. We really need to look at these statistics and be able to do something about it, because if we don't do something about it, these numbers will continue going up, Linda. It's not going to come down if we don't put interventions, control measures to be able to reduce this burden. One other thing, again, we've seen from the data is that these cancers are being diagnosed at very late stages. So we see that about 66.5 or 67% are diagnosed at stage 3, stage 4. Now, we know, and the doctors will tell us here, that stage 3, stage 4, we will not achieve much in terms of treatment. If we diagnose these cancers early, and we normally say that cancer is not a death sentence, but it's only if we diagnose them early, stage 1, stage 2. But from the data, again, we can see that we diagnose about 33% in early stages. So these are very few numbers.
Okay.
So what we need to do is really ensure that we are diagnosing these cancers at early stages so that we can achieve treatment.
Yeah, and yes, that early diagnosis is key. My father died from lung cancer. By the time we were figuring out what was going on, it was at stage 4. So basically, there was very little we could do. But, and so what are the common cancers around in Kenya?
So in Kenya, the statistics that was released in 2018, over the years, we've seen that cervical cancer was one of the leading cancers, but we were shocked to see that breast cancer actually has come up as the top cancer nationally, and we have esophageal cancer as well that has come out strongly in the data that we released recently. So when we look at it by gender, breast and cervical cancer are the two leading cancers in women. So this is where we see majority of the numbers, breast and cervical cancer. But esophageal cancer comes in third as well. And then for men, it's esophageal cancer, prostate cancer, colorectal cancer. These are the cancers that are very prevalent. When it comes to mortality, we see that we are losing more women to cervical cancer. You know, so cervical cancer, when it comes to deaths, cervical cancer is leading, followed by breast cancer. So this is where the highest burden is, Linda, and this is where we need to put in interventions.
From the investigation that you did, let's look at it county by county. In which counties do we have a high prevalence of cancer cases, and why? Do you know?
So I wouldn't want to compare county by county, but when we look at each of these counties, we are able to look at which are the cancers that are prevalent in each of these counties. And majority of the counties show that breast and cervical cancer is where the concern was when it comes to women. And then for men, it was cancer of esophagus and prostate cancer. So the shift is between these cancers. You can have cancer of esophagus being the leading, like in Bomet County, esophageal cancer was the leading, followed by cervical cancer. Breast cancer was coming in around the fourth. But again, it doesn't mean that these cancers are not prevalent. It could mean that maybe we need to do more awareness in this county for people to be able to come out. In Nairobi, we see that prostate cancer comes up for men, and cancer of esophagus it comes in as the second most common. But for women, it's breast cancer, then cervical cancer. And this is the pattern across most of the counties that we have covered.
Okay. So now that we have the statistics from Anne Correa, she says we have 47 new cases diagnosed every single year. We lose about 32,000 people to cancer every year. That essentially means we're losing about 80 people to cancer every day. So every single day, there are 80 people that lose their lives to cancer. That is why this is a conversation that we absolutely must have as a country. You're watching The Big Story. Thank you for staying with us. When we get back, we will still have this conversation and now break it down. We'll be speaking to Dr. Andrew Odhiambo, who's an oncologist, and we'll also be speaking to Dr. Jacqueline Kitulu, who's the president, Kenya Medical Association. How did we get here? Where are we getting it wrong? What can we do? You can't be losing 80 people every single day. You can't be losing 37,000 in a year. Won't work. Let's take that break now.